Welcome to the Monday, August 4th edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by Circus Sports. I'm Joe Bartel. You can follow me on Twitter at JBFantasy, here alongside every Monday moving forward, Jake Letarski at RotoJake. You can find him on Twitter. We're going to be recapping a bunch of weekend news. Of course, all of the preseason Week 1 contests should be underway here over the next week as well, too. And continue on the Mock Draft Monday, which has been, I think, a really good exercise in practicing different strategies. I have a video on the RotoWire Fantasy Football YouTube channel out right now fading the tight end position. I have another one coming out fading the quarterback position, what that looks like with the mock draft tool. And we'll be going over the do's and don'ts of what I did last night on the RotoWire Online Championship live draft that I did. I had pick number 9. We're going to be putting it, I guess, to the retest of sorts with pick number 9 on the mock draft tool and what happened, what I should have done if things would have broke a certain way, and maybe how you can adjust as well, too. So using the RotoWire Mock Draft tool, going over the news and notes for today, looking forward to a lot of that. Before we do that, though, let's get a word from our sponsors, Circa Sports. Circa Million and Circa Survivor are back with a massive $21 million in guaranteed prizes. You have the Circa Million, where you pick 5 games against the spread each week, 18 weeks of action, 126 ways to win, $1 million for the winner, and $6 million guaranteed. And then there's also Circa Survivor, with 1 pick a week, no point spread. You just get the correct winner, lasts the longest to win it all, at least $15 million in guaranteed prizes. You can enter Nevada, you can play from anywhere, and then $21 million guaranteed across the 2 contests. Visit circasports.com for details. And then the great part of this is you can have a proxy too with Vegas Proxy Football. So if you want to enter the greatest pro football contest in the world, the Circa Million and Survivor, which you talked about, you have to be in Nevada, and they offer a $21 million prize pool as well. But Vegas Football Proxy can help you play in those awesome contests. Vegas Football Proxy is based in Las Vegas and offers free proxy services for customers all over the country. Sign up at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas and then play from anywhere with Vegas Football Proxy. The folks at VFP are experienced professionals. They're 100% reliable, provide outstanding customer service, and their submission process is easy to use and ensures accurate and timely pick submissions. Tom Carroll and his team at VFP have been serving customers and contest players for more than a decade and have helped countless clients achieve their dreams, from just being able to compete in the Vegas contest all the way to winning the Circa Survivor. If you want to take on a shot at $21 million in prize money, visit vegasfootballproxy.com/ROTO pod for more details. All right, Jake, we had a ton of news over the weekend that I think is going to impact a lot of things. And actually, one of them did change the ADP of my Beat Joe Bartel Online Championship yesterday, with Khalil Shakir listed as week to week with a high ankle sprain for the Bills. I ended up taking, I think, Khalil Shakir in either round 9 or 10 in the full point PPR league, and that's a little bit different where his ADP is going. Obviously didn't scare off me, but the news that you've seen with Khalil Shakir, and especially that Keon Coleman's been really impressing at Bills camp as well, too. Is that enough for you to not draft Khalil Shakir right now with his given ADP?
Yeah, so it's a tough call here. Shakir, right off his 4-year contract extension in February, ready to jump in and be the Bills' number 1 receiver. Apparently, that's what that kind of money suggests. And, of course, we had him number 1 on our depth chart a couple days ago, had his foot ankle examined by team trainers. That was Friday's practice. And now he is being diagnosed as week to week with the dreaded high ankle sprain. We don't have a grade or anything on the severity of that yet, so that'll remain to be seen. But, you can pretty much count him out of practice for the time being for any preseason games. Why would you play any of these people in the preseason? Right. And it's over to Keon Coleman and Joshua Palmer now to lead the receiving core for however long Shakir might be out. So it's an interesting dilemma we have here. I'm looking at NFFC ADP over the last week. Shakir is at 87 and Keon Coleman is at 106. So the gap's definitely still narrowing. You and I both mentioned Keon Coleman as one of our sleeper targets last week. He was someone we talked about in the mock drafts. He's getting interesting. We believe Josh Allen is going to be, within QB 2, 3, 4. But for that to hold true, obviously you have his rushing, but he does need some targets here beyond, Coleman, Kincaid. And even Coleman has had his struggles in practice. I think he'll get over that here. But yeah, Coleman becomes a little more attractive. Shakir becomes a little less attractive. We always say, Alan, our guy, always likes to say, don't go after injuries. Injuries will find you, as far as drafting players that are already set to miss the first couple of weeks or whatnot. And there are a lot of notable injuries in camp this week, but I think the headliner right now is Shakir, and how severe that high ankle sprain actually is. We'll have to just keep monitoring his practice participation with all these injuries. We've got all the camp injuries ready for you on RotoWire. Our latest news page is ready to go, and definitely want to check that out. But yeah, the stock's fallen a bit.
Yeah, if it's not Khalil Shakir, it's another Bill. James Cook, who appears to be doing a hold in, has not practiced the past 2 days after at least reporting to camp earlier last week, 2 weeks ago now at this point. I have zero idea what to make of this. I ended up taking James Cook in the, I think I took him in the NFFC as well last night. So inadvertently, I guess, stacking up on the Bills that are having some news over the past 24 hours or so. I assumed that there would be no deal for James Cook and the Bills, that they have Ray Davis, I think, as a capable backup is a good thing for the Bills offense, and therefore they can kind of withstand whatever James Cook wants to do. But more importantly, I don't think James Cook, who was, I think, third round selection, but more importantly, not really being paid a ton of money, can afford to also just miss extended time. Like, I think this is going to be one of those hold-in scenarios that you'll end up seeing get resolved a week before the NFL start of the season, even if it means no extension. But I'm not sure, like, there's a lot of running backs, Breece Hall, Kyron Williams, in that range that maybe you're going to choose to draft those guys over James Cook instead, given this hold-in situation that's happening.
Yeah, it's very interesting because he wants 15 million a year on a new deal. It seems like it's a little bit early to be asking for that. He does have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He did score 16 touchdowns last year. That has him climbing up depth charts here. But yeah, I mean, I guess we're going to see. I imagine the sides get a deal done because I just have the Buffalo Bills depth chart up here, right, to prepare for this. And I'm looking like if Bryce Young or somebody had this depth chart, you'd be talking. The talking point would be how not great it is. There's just a lack of top tier weapons. And I suppose that does happen when you have to pay your quarterback. But here we are. Ray Davis is waiting in the wings in the meantime. In the NFFC over the last week, Ray Davis's ADP is at 136, which puts him just behind Rachaad White, who I'm kind of meh on, puts him behind Jaden Blue, who I'm very interested in, puts him behind Najee Harris, whose stock is falling a bit, puts him behind Judkins, whose stock is plummeting, Tajay Spears, who I like. So that's just some comparisons with Ray Davis. He is just ahead of the likes of Trey Benson, who I know you're a bit of a fan of. He's ahead of Dylan Sampson from Cleveland, whose obviously stock is trending the opposite direction as Quishon Judkins. He's ahead of Nick Chubb, for example, whose stock has been rising with the Joe Mixon injury we have here. So yeah, Ray Davis is an interesting option. I mean, the stock goes up, the ADP goes up. I do have some interest there, but James Cook, yeah, okay, so he's played pretty much all the games, but one, I think, in the 3 seasons in the league here. The 16 touchdowns are super attractive. The receiving yards have been super attractive here. He caught 32 balls last year, 44 the year before. So he's a very effective option. He is the man there if they can get a deal done. And I'd like to think they can. I don't like to react to this news too much on August 4th, but keep Ray Davis maybe highlighted as a sleeper because when you're at that point in the draft here, you're not taking starters. You're taking guys like Trevor Lawrence, your backup quarterback, Colston Loveland, probably your backup tight end, Luther Burden, a huge rookie flyer. You're looking at guys like that in that point of the draft. Ray Davis becomes more attractive because there is some theoretical upside.
Yeah, I had erroneously said James Cook a third-round selection. He was second to last pick in the second round a couple of years ago. He's missed 2 games, but to your point, he's normally out in the field. Now, there have been points where James Cook has been injured during games, and I think that's a little bit part of this with the Bills. You can't have James Cook being every down back. Like that's just not what he's able to do and capable of doing, at least running between the tackles throughout a whole season, them being healthy. So to pay a guy that is, to say he's a bit player or a scheme-dependent player is true for James Cook, but that's not an insult either. That James Cook is a really good receiving back, that he's great on these change of pace runs, that can be an explosive player on the outside. These are all assets in why James Cook is asking $15 million. He's not Najee Harris, where he just runs up the middle and gets 3 yards plotting. Like that's why you have Ray Davis and things like that. And I think the Bills have protected themselves if this James Cook situation ends up going a little bit longer, because Ty Johnson can also be the pass catcher. Ray Davis had a pretty good just in a very limited sample size from a pass catching opportunity too. So I think Ray Davis is one of those, along with Trey Benson, like you highlighted, at least for me, that I want to have these backup running backs on my roster. Maybe that's another strategy we can do in these mock draft Mondays is if we're going to take a running back, we force ourselves to take the handcuff to them. So in this case, if we take James Cook, we have to have Ray Davis. And what does your roster
illustrate what the opportunity cost is, to making that move, which is the strategy, it can be debated. Long.
We have more news, and this was actually a little bit earlier before we came on the podcast today. Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers head coach, told us that Najee Harris is getting better, that he has not practiced yet in training camp, but things are progressing nicely. And then followed up by saying he's walking laps around the field as part of the getting better. Let's just say, Jake, that if I told you I'm getting ready for Roto Hoops and you're like, oh, great, you're really training really well. I'm like, yes, I'm walking laps. You would think, so you're not in a good spot. Because
that's what the kids in our gym class did on fitness day, right? Run around the track if you didn't want to actually go to the weight room or play a game of dodgeball.
That's absolute baloney to me. I get so angry with this. Don't lie to me. Don't insult my intelligence. Najee Harris is getting better. Don't worry, guys. He's just walking laps around the field. Like if you felt like Najee Harris was actually doing better, why is he not receiving handoffs from Justin Herbert? Why is he not doing more strenuous activities? Like this superficial eye injury, which is what the agent called it a couple weeks back now due to the July 4th firework incident, is absolutely affecting things in the way the Chargers want to use Najee Harris this year. And it remains to be seen what he'll end up doing at all this season. But I think Omari Hampton is going to keep shooting up draft boards.
Was that a pun? Remains to be seen?
Or shooting up draft boards, I guess. I mean,
we could do that all day. Believe it or not, vision is an important part of being a running back. And we have Hampton. If I filter NFFC ADP by the last 7 days, Hampton's up at 32. So he's starting to almost creep into the back end of that second round, which I wouldn't be surprised if he's there on draft day, especially if Harris doesn't move that. Now, I mean, the window to find value on him is absolutely over. Are you willing to take Omari and Hampton over Breece Hall, over James Cook, over Kenneth Walker? At this stage, maybe. Walker's got an injury now too, so we'll see. But he's definitely shooting up there. Obviously, he's the number 2 rookie running back in terms of dynasty in these rankings. But stock's going through the moon.
Yeah, let's just say we have the NFFC auction draft here in a couple of weeks. Really excited to go ahead and do that. I believe there's still spots available if you guys want to participate. I think that's on the NFFC site as well too. We'll have it posted in the week to come if you want to sign up for it and play along with us. But we'll have a live stream of that. I would be really happy if Hampton is my running back too on the team that we put together, Jake. And if it even means that we go in a price range above Breece Hall necessarily, I don't think we'll have to. But if people are going to push him to that level from a price perspective, I will gladly do it. I'm very comfortable with saying Omari Hampton. I don't like forfeiting the receivers I can get around there. And we'll have to play it cheap at different positions. But I think Omari Hampton as my running back too is definitely a scenario I want to see in this auction draft.
Well, we're going to go out of number 9 when we do our mock draft Monday here, kicking off in a little bit. And if we do take one of those top tier receivers at that point, then Hampton almost becomes a target in the third round to the point where we're hoping he falls to us in the third round. So we'll see how the simulator does that, if we can catch a break on that later in the show.
We'll get to a bit more news here. A.J. Brown is managing a hamstring injury. It feels like every receiver of prominence is right now through the early portions of training camp. He did not practice Sunday or Monday. This is a bigger deal because A.J. Brown is a top 16 drafted player right now, or at least top 18. I'm trying not to overreact in the same way I'm not overreacting with Justin Jefferson either, but it is something to at least account for with the Eagles and already a passing attack that's probably lackluster relative to the rest of the NFL. Not that they can't, but it's more that they don't have to when they have Saquon Barkley and the tush push in their disposal as well too. You don't have to rely on A.J. Brown being a Cooper Kupp level 1,800 receiver, but never good with these soft tissue injuries.
Yeah, exactly. A.J. Brown's a really tough case here because remember he played in week 1 last year and then he sat out through the entire bye. I'm trying to find out exactly what that injury was, but I'm pretty sure it was a lower body.
Yeah,
it was a hamstring. He dealt with some knee questions in November, looking at all these practice reports. But yeah, it was a hamstring injury to start last season too. And if you're looking at your mid to late second round pick, it's a little bit concerning. And we talked about some concerns with Devontae Smith in general, with just the Eagles' general game flow and not passing as much in the second half if they're as good as they think we are. But yes, I'm going to try not to overreact on August 4th to A.J. Brown sitting out, preemptively, hopefully. He's still 28 years old. He's a physical player, so obviously he needs that strength here. But it's just more of a note than anything. I'm not sure ADP is ready to react to that seriously. If this same story happens, 3 weeks from now, then it's time to start reacting.
The last one we should talk about is Cam Scadaboo, the rookie running back for the Giants, I believe 4th round selection, but I keep getting these rounds. It feels like a little bit wrong. One of the more talented collegiate running backs last year. Of course, he thought he was the most talented over Ashton Genty, but Scadaboo left Friday's practice with a hamstring injury. The Giants do have Tyrone Tracy. The Giants still do have Devin Singletary as well, too. I think people kind of forget about it in this backfield conundrum, if you want to call it that. But there was an MRI done for Scadaboo. We have not seen like the full report on that yet, which they're listing it as day-to-day, as every team would right now, because it doesn't behoove them to say anything else. But this is one of those that I already was not drafting Scadaboo as is, and I think I have to push him down even bit more. Again, we're talking about Ray Davis, Trey Benson. I think Scadaboo goes ahead of those guys or close to it, and I would take Trey Benson and Ray Davis every single time instead.
Over the last 7 days, which includes the time where this injury was reported, Scadaboo is at 101 in the NFFC here, which is right around our guy Keon Coleman, for example. Just Tracy is still ahead of Scadaboo, but only by 4 spots. So we'll see how that goes. And apparently Scadaboo wasn't really taking first-team reps to begin with, according to kind of our last player notes. It was Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary. Maybe it's just some of that rookie treatment. You got to earn it here. But
last year, Tyrone Tracy was involved as one of the starters in that backfield. I want to make it clear, though, that the Giants aren't one of those teams that typically push down the rookies just to push them down, because Tracy was making noise already at this point in training camp last year.
They were just kind of caught with their pants down after letting Barkley walk. They needed a body, and Tracy pretty much from week 5 onward, with the exception of a couple of down weeks, from week 5 onward was RB1 for the Giants. And people tend to kind of forget that, and they want to go for the new shiny thing, but there is an incumbent here with the Giants. And I got a little Tracy early. I got 1 share of Scadaboo in 6 drafts so far, and that was the fishbowl where I'm kind of trying to shoot for home runs at this point, and a format where, at least the way I interpret the rules, is very running back heavy here. But yeah, people are forgetting that Scadaboo was indeed the incumbent. It's pretty much the same, very similar cast here in terms of staff and whatnot. So, here we are here, and maybe things will get to a more realistic point in terms of ADP.
It'll be very interesting to see how the Giants' backfill unfolds. I agree with you. I think Tyrone Tracy is going to be the guy, and for at least the immediate future, especially if Cam Scadaboo is going to miss additional time here with this injury, even if Scadaboo is ready for the start of the regular season, a week and a half of snaps that you might be missing is all it takes, especially for teams like the Giants or people on the hot seat, to go ahead and have the thing that they trust. In this case, Tyrone Tracy gets significant snaps. So again, I'll take the backups like Trey Benson or Ray Davis over Scadaboo right now, and we're not seeing that unfold as the ADP is. So we're going to start.
Do you want me to do the quick hitters at all? Just bump through them, rattle them off real fast for anyone, because it'll be helpful, save you a couple of clicks here. We kind of mentioned Kenneth Walker dealing with some foot soreness. He's missing a 3rd straight practice. Injury bug has already found him. Keenan Allen is visiting the Chargers. Both sides apparently have mutual interest in a reunion. We have James Conner himself. This is a lot of speak, but instead of coach speak, it's player speak. He says that Trey Benson is going to get more playing time and take more snaps this year. In Cleveland, everyone's worried about that quarterback situation. Joe Flacco is handling the bulk of team drills, period, in Cleveland, with Kenny Pickett and Shedeur Sanders a little banged up here. 49ers cut Greg Joseph, and looks like Jake Moody has won the job. So, kicking news. I know everyone's lining up for that. Also in the 49ers, Isaac Guerrero. He's out a few weeks with a shoulder injury.
That's a big
Obviously,
deal.
Christian McCaffrey's the man. So that's not huge fantasy news unless you're trying to figure out your early season handcuff there. Obviously, preseason games are starting up this week. Check out RotoWire for all the latest news. I know a lot of you out there are playing DFS for the preseason because you got to scratch that itch. And I certainly don't blame you here, but getting in on all that preseason news is going to be big, and we've got it all here for you.
I love it. Yep. And from a preseason perspective, we're going to have you covered throughout the whole thing. Myself, Jim Coventry, Lauren, Alan, we're all going to be at the Fantasy Expo here starting at the end of the week. I think most of us will be leaving Thursday, going to Canton, Ohio. Lots of live draft coverage of the Kings Classic on SiriusXM Channel 87. I'll be doing that one both on Saturday and Sunday. Lots of different video content. Maybe we'll see some of us as the RotoWire guys connecting with a few of the other favorite fantasy analysts out there. So make sure we follow along to everyone going along to the Fantasy Expo towards the end of this week as well, too. I want to take a break, get a word from our sponsors, Blue Wire here, and we'll come back with the Mock Draft Monday starting at pick number 9 and at least rehashing or reviewing what I did with the NFFC draft yesterday and ways I could have improved my team. So stick around. All right, we're back again. Obviously, for the video audience, a momentary lapse there, or at least a pause. But we'll get to this, and I want to make sure, Jake, that you share the mock draft tool that we have here so we can watch it coinciding. But again, we're going to do the mock draft Mondays moving forward, different strategies. Last week we talked about targeting our favorite sleepers, guys we want to. Maybe I'm showcasing the guys I want a little bit too much because Mason Taylor got sniped 1 pick before me. But 2 rounds 2 rounds before his ADP, Jake, normally where he goes. So that was very clear.
That's cooking. That stock is cooking. Someone's been listening to you.
Team number 8 knew Joe Bartel shtick and wanted to make sure that that he got me razzed up, and he did. I think I ended up like laughing just out loud, way like just the comical nature of it. But I appreciate teammates in the FFC doing it. You can watch me try not to tilt off the planet on the RotoWire Fantasy Football YouTube channel, where we did the NFFC live draft last night. That's also the one we'll be doing our auction draft for the NFFC in a couple of weeks as well too. So let's kick things off. How are you going to have this set up here for the mock draft, Jake?
Yes, exactly. I'll do like 30 seconds on setting this up. I want to get the right view so here people can see it on the screen here. Here's our home base for the mock draft simulator. That's just fantasy NFL featured mock draft simulator. You can get it there. We're going to start a mock draft. Of course, it's going to let you decide whether you want to pick from your leagues that you've imported into my leagues on the RotoWire website, or you could go sync a new league, or in this case, we're just going to do August 4th pod. And we'll just keep to a snake draft, 12 teams. So here's what we're going to do. We decided we're going to select out of the 9 spot here, because that's where your NFFC draft was this past weekend. So you've got some feedback there. Also, we did out of the 4 spot, the last mock draft Monday here.
Yep.
And we mentioned the 4 spot a lot in our previous shows in terms of where you might want to be drafting if you get the chance to pick this year. So if you're curious if out of the 4 spot, check out the old shows. We'll just go half PPR, keep it pretty
can I jump in here? Can we do full point PPR and 3 receivers to reflect what happened with the NFC?
Okay,
and
cool.
Then,
I was definitely going to go to 3 receivers, stick to the industry standard there here.
Yep.
We'll keep a kicker and defense in here just for the heck of it.
Might as well.
Because that's the most common way. And again, we're draft order team 9. So what's going to happen is then it's going to move you over to the draft plan screen here. We went through at length how to do a draft plan. We probably might want to even do that again at some point this month, just to give people a refresher on that tool as we continue to add new features to it. And the draft plan is where you can do things like set your risk tolerance by round. You can factor things into the rankings like you never have before. If you want player age to be weighted in the rankings, if you want offensive line strength, if you want playoff strength of schedule, if you want to base your players on quarterback play, or anything of those sorts, or just overall strength of schedule, there's a list of about 15 factors that you can weigh and order in your order of importance there as well. The draft plan feature also has you set targets or players to avoid. And it really gets you set up more for a draft than really ever before. It's a new tool here. But for now, just for the sake of this, I'm going to say choose from me. This is the default RotoWire rankings. Our formula's got a good revamp here. You're going to see this when we're doing mock drafts. That's another big. The look is a lot different than what people are used to looking at here. But part of this whole overhaul here was indeed a rankings formula change that takes these factors. But this is just going to be the plain default rankings here with the draft plan. So we're going to get going here. It's going to take a minute because, of course, it is, as you can see at the top, right away drafting the first 9 picks. So I'll just read those over because this number 9 pick is so important here. And there is, of course, some variance programmed into play. It won't necessarily take Jamar Chase number 1 overall every time, and it did not in this case. We have Bijan Robinson, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown going number 3 might be a little bit sketchy, but that's why there's a degree of variance here. Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, Puka Nacua, Malik Neighbors, Justin Jefferson. So now we're on the clock here, and we discussed the 9th pick. One of the reasons we want to do the 9th pick is because really the layups are gone. In this case, most of the ones.
I'll jump in because I don't want to have the software embarrass you, Jake. But if CeeDee Lamb were available in a full point PPR league with 3 receivers start at pick number 9, you must be in a New York Giants only draft because this is as big of a layup as you will ever see. I talk about variance in this mock draft tool, and we talk about the AC factor, alcohol consumed. Everyone is completely, I will not say the word, but they are not operating on the right capacity if CeeDee Lamb is available at pick 9. So while all the layups might be gone, this one right here is there. This is a slam dunk of all slam dunks.
Mm-hmm. And even if the draft that you do is more realistic, again, we're doing this just completely running it with no prep on the fly. This is a live show. Whatever the tool spits out, we're going to do. We'll take CeeDee Lamb, but even if you are not fortunate enough to land with him being available at the 9th overall pick, my gut is to generally go receiver here. Like I would probably take I know Amon-Ra is falling to this state. He seems to have fallen behind Lamb and
I got
Justin
St. Brown
Jefferson
at the back end of the second round in the NFFC. So on the turn on the way back, I got St. Brown at pick 17. I ended up taking Ashton Genty here, and I want you to go with the receiver part in just a second because I would typically agree with you. But when you're posed with, here's Malik Neighbors dealing with separate, different lower body injuries already at this point. He had those last year. When it's Brian Thomas theoretically splitting time with Travis Hunter and the Jacksonville offense having some question marks. And then a guy like St. Brown, who has no Ben Johnson as the coordinator and also is dealing with some injuries throughout the early portions of training camp. I just would rather go with a Genty, which I think is a sure thing. And I made the case on the NFFC live draft last night, again, on the RotoWire Fantasy Football YouTube page. Go ahead and check that out from yesterday. That even if you have Ashton Genty just do rookie year Najee Harris stuff, which was basically over 1,000 rushing yards, just marginally over, and then had like 50 catches for 450 yards. That's inherently not a good year relative to a top 10 pick at running back, but that is a safe running back 10. And at that spot right now in drafts, if I can get that and have an upside potential of Genty, who I think gets all the volume in Las Vegas, I will do that. But I would typically, Jake, agree with you that receiver is probably the right call in a 3-receiver starting league.
Yeah, because going in, I fully expected to either take Amon-Ra St. Brown at 9 or Puka Nacua. Both of those guys are cornerstones that I think we can agree on. I know the Puka stock is fading a little bit because people are starting to worry about Matt Stafford.
And they should be.
And it seems like, the chatter around Rams camp is that maybe they should be. And like, I've even seen some beat writers suggest, well, if you have a full year of Jimmy G, then what does that actually do to the Nacua and Devontae Adams draft stock? I guess we'll see. But in the interest of keeping things moving, we'll take the layup, knowing that more realistically, we're looking at Amon-Ra, maybe Puka here. Do you have a problem with Derrick Henry at number 9, or
no?
Is it Genty over Henry for you every time?
It would be Genty over Henry because I have a more confidence I can get Henry possibly coming back in the second round, where Genty would be no way given the rookie factor. Now, often it doesn't happen. If this was Joe, you have one draft to win it all, and if not, bad things will very much happen to you. I would take Derrick Henry over Genty, but there is a bit of a strategy, a bit of gamesmanship that you're hoping Derrick Henry can come back in the second round.
Yes,
That's
fair. And you're right. Genty is 8 in NFFC ADP. Derrick Henry is 14. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and draft CeeDee Lamb, see what we have coming back here. Well, it looks like our running back situation really got rough behind us here, because after CeeDee Lamb, we saw Henry, Genty, McCaffrey go, and Josh Jacobs is going here. So now we're kind of at a dilemma. For me, it's between these first two guys that our assistant GM suggests, to be completely honest. I'm looking at either A-Chain or Brian Thomas. Where do you lie on that?
So this is exactly why, and if you have the opportunity to play in leagues where you have your KDS, Kentucky Derby style, where you are picking where you want, I would either go pick 4 for the example we talked about last Monday on Mock Draft Monday, where the opportunity with a Bucky Irving or Josh Jacobs or Jonathan Taylor comes back to you, or pick number 9 or 8, because you are going to decide between the Puka Nacuas, maybe a receiver because the AC factor falls to you in your leagues, your friends and family league, but you'll get a Puka Nacua, a Neighbors, somebody of that degree. And then you're more conventionally going to get, I think, the final end of this tier. And this is a perfect example because of what you just described right there. Between Devon Achane and Brian Thomas, the drop-off, and I think Nico Collins too, the drop-off with those three, I think, is monumental. We talked about A.J. Brown already having hamstring injury stuff early in training camp. I think the answer is Brian Thomas. I think people will be excited to have Brian Thomas at the back end of the first round, but this is why you have a 9 or 8, because you are going to get the very end of the tier. And in my mind, the end of what I think is a 16 first-round draft or first-round picks this year. It has not happened very often where I could say confidently 16 players should go in a first round, but that is what I think is going to occur here. So I would take Brian Thomas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted a quick sidebar here, show off our cheat sheet view if you do prefer to look at overall instead of just the recommendations. I think in the early parts of the draft, the recommendations are going to have the guys you want, unless you specifically marked them as a do not draft in your draft plan. But we can go to the cheat sheet and view it overall. Can view it by ADP. We're using Sleeper, I believe, on the software here, and of course by position if you're ready to go by position. But I think these first 2 picks are definitely best player available. I think personally, if it were me, I'd probably go Achane just to shore up the running back spot, but I don't mind at all going receiver, and I'll do that here in this case. Now we got a little bit of a long wait to go here, and a couple of the running backs that we were hoping might fall back to us are no longer quite there. So we have a few things here. Obviously, we went on a long run without running backs. Bucky Irving, Achane, both taken pretty close after us. And then we have, Jonathan Taylor, Kyren Williams, Chase Brown. I thought for a second that they might find their way back to us here. So now we have the dilemma, actually, that we were discussing earlier when we were talking about the Najee Harris news.
Mm-hmm.
Our algorithm and most of the cheat sheets or lists that you see are going to throw Breece Hall about this spot among this group of running backs. You can see in the suggested for you that it's almost exclusively running backs because it's smart. It knows our roster. It knows we took 2 wide receivers already, and now it's telling us that we need to take a running back. But, all of these guys have their flaw, and maybe the projections haven't quite caught up to it. We're not always with the same level here, but this is 3.8 here. So we're looking at 32, and that happens to be exactly where Omarion Hampton is going in the NFFC.
Before you make this pick,
over
Jake,
the last week.
I want to make sure that you're showcasing 2 things. First,
yes.
I love that the suggested for you is going to actually auto-populate what it thinks makes sense for your roster. Can you show the cumulative ADP right now or the cheat sheets available? Because I think people will be like, well, yeah, why wouldn't you take a receiver? I'm sorry, why wouldn't you take a running back? It's actually going to try to say, or at least right now, based off our cheat sheets and ADP, that you'll see a Garrett Wilson, a Marvin Harrison, a Mike Evans, and even the quarterbacks and tight ends in George Kittle and Jalen Hurts. Those guys are all supposed to, if we're just going off the computer, the 1 through 12, the whole way through, that's what's supposed to happen. But because it's actually giving you defined different options based on what you did early, reactive sort of drafts, that's where I want to go first. The second part, and I think this is infinitely more important if you're doing the Omarion Hampton part of this. Can we go to the part where it shows what's the likely odds of this player being drafted?
100% here. Yeah, so we do have to worry about the 9, 10, 11, 12 turn coming back here. Breece Hall, 68% chance to be drafted before the next pick. Omarion Hampton, only a 22% chance to be drafted before the next pick. Now, again, these are projections and simulations here. With the way Hampton's stock is rising, I would say it's a little higher than 22% chance.
I bet you it's closer to like 60% chance he gets taken. However, I really do think, and again, I talked about the AC factor in just the alcohol consumed, but I actually wouldn't be surprised in your standard ESPN or Yahoo Friends and Family League where these guys are buried by default in the queue. People might not recognize it.
Chance.
They might not see it. So while 22%,
it's a mock draft simulator, right? You're trying to simulate what we're doing.
And I think simulating your league mates being dumb is actually a totally fine process for this because I wouldn't be surprised if it happens across America.
Okay, so I know what you're getting at here. We skip Hampton in hopes he falls back to us. But now the question is Breece Hall the layup, or is there any part of you that considers maybe Garrett Wilson?
Given the news that we talked about just today with James Cook doing his hold-in my mind, it's between James Cook and Breece Hall, and it isn't a conversation. It is now Breece Hall every single time in the spot. Right. If you want to risk Omarion Hampton, if you think your league mates are dumb at the back end of the first round, and then he can sneak by one more round, like I think we can have.
I want to see if we can just execute the perfect draft with this thing.
I want the A+ grade,
and I'm going to hope that Hampton comes back. So let's pull the trigger here. I think we are in the clear. We definitely want, at this point with how things are going, James Cook, you could make a case for James Cook before the Holden situation. I think Hampton over James Conner and Chuba Hubbard is pretty clear, right?
Yep, I think that's the exact right call. I'm ecstatic if I have Omarion Hampton come back to me.
Yep, I mean, maybe this is a case where the AC factor, as you call it, maybe didn't give us super, accurate here. But if you start a draft, CeeDee Lamb, Brian Thomas, Breece Hall, Omarion Hampton, pack your bags, man. You won the league.
Jake, we're going for the A+ today. Today is the day that we get an A+ draft grade from the simulator. I feel like we can do it today. We've done so many of these now. I want this darn A+.
All right. So now we're back here in this situation here. Our assistant GM is telling us with pick 5.9 to either take a strong look at a George Pickens or Devonta Smith. Jameson Williams, Travion Henderson, who we talked about last week, is out there and interesting. I also just want to quick take a look, just because I'm not saying we're going to do it, but just because we don't have a quarterback or a tight end yet, I just want to use this to look at here.
That's
so
exactly
quarterback,
a good call. Yep.
It could be Mahomes, Knicks. I think that if we were thinking quarterback here, we could probably wait. Another thing we can do is check the rosters here. And
I like the insights tool, which actually shows the
yep.
by the number, or like here's the quarterbacks for other teams as well too. Just by going in the insights section, you could see like a dot that would appear on there for the quarterbacks as well.
Exactly. So the thing though is Team 10 doesn't have a quarterback, Team 11 doesn't have a quarterback, and Team 12 does. So we would be taking a risk here, and maybe there's a reason to go Patrick Mahomes. I want to check tight ends too, just in case. Travis Kelce, I think that'd be a little bit too much of a reach for his ADP, which is 84, which isn't so hot.
Mm-hmm.
So do we go back to the 4U, and do you like one of these receivers, or are we looking at maybe pulling the Travion Henderson, going with the rookie running backs, filling a flex before we fill the third receiver?
Yeah, I think the third receiver is the better call. I think there's going to be some value at the running back spot later on. Can you click the receivers that are just left over, like that's populated by the receivers itself?
Yep. And also, is there any hesitancy to getting George Pickens when we already have CeeDee Lamb on our team?
So there would be a certain person, maybe not either one of us on the show, that would say, because you have CeeDee Lamb, you absolutely need to take Pickens, because the cheapest sort of stack probably is getting Dak Prescott later on and Jake Ferguson, which I may have been already teeing up in my mind to go ahead and have a conversation as to what stacking might be. I was already thinking of the YouTube thumbnails and two experts talking about what stacking is and how valuable it is right there as it plays out live. Let's, for this exercise, go ahead and take George Pickens, because I think if we're to say, hey, what is the upside potential of this team? If the Cowboys defense is once again not very good, and Dak Prescott, when healthy, has been a top 7 fantasy quarterback for each of the past 4 years.
And I don't know if it's been discussed on the show yet, but Micah Parsons' holdout is becoming a real thing. He is not even a holdout. He says he doesn't want to play for the Cowboys. He is done with the Cowboys. He wants to be traded.
I don't know what it means necessarily. I would assume just like Terry McLaurin, that stuff gets figured out because Jerry Jones has to by default. But let's do this. Let's take George Pickens. And now in our mind, we make sure we have to have Dak Prescott, even if it's a little bit earlier. And we'll be watching that percentage chance of when Dak Prescott could go, because we don't want to be missing that opportunity.
Yeah. And so we're going to wait on quarterback with this situation here, because this tier isn't worth reaching for. There could be a case to be made for Travis Kelce, but our boy is sitting right here. I think we need to take him, even if we're only using him in our flex spot, and we just build up the depth that we want.
Let's do
it.
And
also, like, if Travion Henderson doesn't catch on immediately, we're still covered because we have two awesome running backs. I think we need to grab upside here and go with Travion.
Full point PPR league, absolutely. Travion Henderson makes complete sense to me.
All right, we're seeing a little run of quarterbacks happen, another little run of tight ends. We're getting down there. But again, do we like any of these quarterbacks enough to maybe reach a little bit? I'm looking an awful lot at Mark Andrews here. Evan Ingram actually went before him, which I'm not entirely sure is correct.
That's how I would draft it. The AC factor is definitely going Joe Bartel direction a little bit more here. But
exactly. Andrews is the ADP answer if we're looking at sleeper ADP, so it's good we check that. I know you're a Juwan Jennings guy. And let's just take a quick look at our roster here. Breece Hall, Marion Hampton, CeeDee Lamb, Brian Thomas, George Pickens, Travion Henderson here. Do we take a bench player before we take – the question here now is, we're in round 7. Are we taking a bench player before filling out our roster?
So the idea is we're committing now to waiting at quarterback, and by default, you probably can wait at tight end a little bit more as well. Mm-hmm. If you look at that chance to be drafted factor with Mark Andrews, if you go to the draft board, what does team 10, 11, and 12 have a tight end left? There's something to it. Now, I would actually pose the question to you, and I genuinely want the answer. A player like Rome Odunze is somebody I'm not drafting right now. I am not confident that either Caleb Williams will look good or Ben Johnson will completely implement this Lions offense into Chicago year 1. And all it takes is one of those factors, if not both, not happening. And Rome Odunze, who I think a lot of people are just assuming is going to be effective right away in year 2 because he should be. I think Odunze is a really good prospect. Is in a bad spot. So the upside scenario for Odunze is obviously massive. Whereas there's a very clear floor with Jacoby Myers in a full point PPR league, opposite Brock Bowers in the slot, probably gobbling up close to 130 targets. Like, it might not be sexy, but Jacoby Myers is probably in your starting lineup more often than not. And as a depth player for us, it makes a lot of sense. So I'll tailor the question to you. In this sort of roster build where we have two really good receivers and have been chasing a bit of running back depth, do you want the home run swing of Odunze, or do you want a safety net more so with Jacoby Myers?
So this is funny for me because my answer is neither. I would be conservative and just go ahead and grab Mark Andrews here. I think that if you're looking at the tight end rankings, Mark Andrews is the last of a tier. We got an unknown rookie. We have an unknown rookie. We have Njoku with a quarterback situation.
Mm-hmm. Another unknown rookie.
Another unknown rookie. Kincaid's interesting if we want to wait because, again, Josh Allen has to throw to somebody. Mm-hmm. Jonnu Smith, in my mind, Mark Andrews is the last of the tier right now. And, looking at the rosters, like I said, teams 11 and 12 do have a starting tight end, but team 10 does not, and Team 10 will be making 2 picks before we make our next pick.
Let's go ahead and take Mark Andrews, but I do want to answer the question. In this scenario where you choose not to go tight end, do you want the safety Jacoby Myers or do you want the upside for a Dunze? So take Mark Andrews, but for that question, what would you be
So for that question, I'm going to go Myers, and that's largely – it's not necessarily what I think in an isolated scenario, but it does have to deal with the roster build here. We did take a rookie running back in the 3rd round. We took a second rookie running back here. And we've got 2 Cowboy receivers here. So we took some big swings early on in this draft. So because of this, I would be more likely to go Myers if I was going to go on a receiver here. But I'm in the camp of let's fill out the starting lineup. This guy's not going to be available. 70% chance he won't be available by the time he comes back. I doubt the computer is going to skip taking the tight end when they have 2 chances to do 4, and the assistant GM is going to push you, right up to that. And of course, I said this in my head. I didn't even look at the notes from the assistant GM, but he's the last tight end in his tier. So that is that's why this decision is easy for me. So let's go ahead and do it. I'm just curious. Did Team 10 end up taking a tight end?
So.
Yes, Team 10 ended up with Jonnu Smith.
Okay.
So in a way, you could say that we hurt another team by getting ahead of this. Now,
even the CPU, we just want to make sure they lose. That's how ruthless we are.
Yes,
here in this
I know. Yeah, we're deadly here. So this gets interesting here. Do we consider taking a quarterback because Dak Prescott might not be an every week starter, or do we just try to get depth here in this case? Do we take another swing with the rookie and Caleb Johnson? I know you're kind of a Juwan Jennings guy, and
I am. The Juwan Jennings additional hamstring stuff that we've heard from this past week makes me a little bit nervous. I think it's part of why Ricky Pearsall probably is going to be drafted over Juwan Jennings as of right now. You could consider Jaden Reed as well, too, at this point with the Packers receiving core. I think the answer is one of those receivers. For the argument's sake, we're gonna wait at least one more round for quarterback, and we're gonna intentionally target Dak Prescott here soon. But I think at receiver, just to make sure we're sticking with our time slot here, that we'll go Juwan Jennings. We'll kind of keep burning through what the rest of the draft looks like.
And again, just cross-referencing ADP on the tool, it's actually telling us Caleb Johnson is the highest one available here. But you're right. Let's make the receiver depth and go ahead and draft Jennings. It's good. It'll also give us an A+ grade if we're going for the recommendations, right?
So again, that's our goal. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. So now here we are in the 9th round at pick 9.9. This is the case here where it's telling us to either build receiver depth or grab one of these quarterbacks. This might be a situation where I grab a quarterback and maybe see if our guy Keon Coleman slips back to us.
Can we look at how many quarterbacks are ahead of Dak Prescott? Because if our idea is that we have now created a George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb stack, what quarterbacks will it take? So it looks like Brock Purdy, Justin Herbert, Caleb Williams. What is the percent draft value for Dak Prescott? It's on the screen, but very barely.
Yes, 12%.
I think we wait. Let's roll the dice one more time. And I think we're running back here because you're right. If we can get a Keon Coleman to come back to us, we're at a pretty good spot. So there's a lot of really good receivers, but I think if we can get one of these receivers and one of the running backs, that's the preferred route I'd go with this.
So the running backs have dropped off significantly. We're looking at Jordan Mason, Charbonnet, Ramondre Stevenson, J.K. Dobbins, Rashad White, Tajay Spears. Out of all these guys, I might actually like Tajay Spears the most, but
I would go Jordan Mason, given I think he's going to split time and probably have the more prominent carries among Aaron Jones. That's my call with this at least. So
all right, so now we're back here. Now
it's time.
I'm saying, because there's a long run. Is it time to take Dak Prescott and we're taking him over Brock Purdy?
Yep, I think that's the right call. Let's go ahead and do it. We might miss out on the A+ now. That's fine.
Yes, we're probably going to not be able to get our
the A+ draft grade
situation here. But looking through this here, it's telling us backup quarterbacks. Maybe you want to take your guy Bateman.
Yeah, let's go Bateman as well. And looking at this, I had made the case, and this is going to be on a YouTube video here to come, in the scenario where you choose to wait at quarterback, which we did. Again, we had entered with the idea of, wow, we got CeeDee Lamb at number 9, one of the best values you're going to ever see in drafts right now. George Pickens is a 5th-round selection. Clearly, we're building a Cowboys stack of sorts. You can still draft Dak Prescott round 9, 10, 11, whatever it is, and come back with a high upside quarterback. And I think in some scenarios, Fields is that answer to me. I don't know if Fields ended up being taken at that spot. No, he's still left. Like, I would rather have Fields over a lot of these guys, Jordan Love, J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, in this specific build where I have a safe quarterback. Again, Brock Purdy could be in this example. Baker Mayfield could be this example. And Fields has the potential on a week-to-week basis to be a top 5 guy. So I would literally double tap quarterback in this instance, have Fields and Prescott on my roster.
If C.J. Stroud is still here at this spot, which is probably pretty rare, I think I would lean him, but I'll go ahead and get Fields here for you.
Sounds good. And then looking at the running backs, we've talked about Trey Benson and Ray Davis. They, I think, just went off the board here. Oh, so, Ray Davis is there. Perfect.
Yeah, so Ray Davis is perfect. He's well below his ADP in this situation. I think, at this point, we're just going late, but I think we'll take Ray Davis. That's who we talked about earlier, with the James Cook news. So we'll take Ray Davis. Let's I want to expand the grid here. How did I do that before? Board. Here we're looking for. Remember, we only have 3 picks left, and we may or may not have to take a kicker or defense. They won't force us. So now we're looking
for the exercise. We'll take a kicker and defense because I want the really good draft grade if possible. Please.
None of these tight ends are interesting to me.
No. I will not. I refuse. Jake, I'm going to convert you. If you are not Team Mason Taylor by the end of us doing these podcasts preseason, I have failed you. If anyone is listening and is not taking Mason Taylor with one of their last picks, I have failed you. Please, it costs nothing.
Exactly.
Let's just go ahead and do it.
So we're not going to worry about that yet here. Jerome Ford is interesting to me.
I would take Jerome Ford given the depth that we have at receiver at this point.
Unfortunately, someone took Brendan Aubrey again. You start thinking about that around the spot in the draft.
I would always go Chris Boswell as well, too. The actual one of the top fantasy kicker leaders as well for the Steelers.
Okay. So Jerome Ford?
Jerome Ford, yep. And then we'll have Mason Taylor on the way back because that's what you need to do to win your league.
Should we grab a defense then and then skip kicker in this draft?
Well, like I got sniped one pick before the NFFC. Don't let the computer put you in a spot where they snipe you, Jake. I think I would rather take Mason Taylor right now and make sure I get my guy, and we can get the kicker and defense later. There we go, Mason Taylor. Finally, I'm going to convert Jake that he's going to choose to do this more often than not. So we had this conversation yesterday on the RotoWire Online Championship live draft that I did, week 1 starters for defense and kicker. I have admittedly not done a whole lot of research with that. There was a few teams that you could go ahead and look at from a defense perspective. You're just saying, I'm going to stream that position. In my mind, we just take kicker, right, Jake? Like that one theoretically is the better potential.
Yeah, I'm going to be a young way guy in this situation.
Yeah, I think that's a good call as well too. And
so we're probably going to end up with a little bit of a not so hot draft grade because we did not take a defense. We're not going to get our A+. We're going to get a C because obviously we left a spot open here. Maybe eventually we'll get the devs working on that to say, hey, that's not necessary here. But again, out of spot number 9, yes, we got a little fortunate to get CeeDee Lamb. We also got very fortunate to get a couple running back targets. Brian Thomas, George Pickens, Travion Henderson, one of our targets. So we got our guys all around here. It was pretty good, but sometimes getting your guys doesn't result in the best draft grade. We got to see. We'll see how it goes. One of these drafts, maybe we'll do a full one and take a kicker defense, but that's where we're at right now. I'm just going to go back to the draft board to kind of look and see. Obviously, everyone else, all the computers are going to do this here, but if we were to take the defense for the better draft grade, we'd be giving up one of our all of these picks. I think are necessary. Ray Davis, Jerome Ford, Mason Taylor. If we want to get our sleeper to go get them. So I'd rather be messing around trying to stream a defense. Who knows? Some quarterback's going to miss week 1, and you'll grab that defense. We'll talk about that on the show because we are the waiver wire gurus every week leading up to the year. But we've got a few more weeks to Mock Draft Monday. Hopefully you'll stick with us.
Yeah, and reminder, it's fantasy football draft season as we've been doing here, and the Commish Kit has you covered. Now in the 24th season, Commish Kit is the only brand with correct digital and paper draft boards. Commish Kit doesn't take themselves too seriously, thank goodness. But they do take your draft seriously and make sure they take your draft day in particular seriously as well too. See why draft day hits differently with Commish Kit. Visit commishkit.com today. Use promo code ROTO for 10% off. So that does it for us here on Mock Draft Monday. Had a really good time talking about some of these exercises, maybe making sure that we have to have the handcuffs to our guys is another strategy in the coming weeks. We'll have auction strategy conversation as well too, either using the mock draft tool or planning for our live NFFC auction draft coming as well. So thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back in next week, Monday.